Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you my review, very late review of X-Men Apocalypse, which of course came out in theaters, quite a while ago at this point. It was released back on May 9th, or May 27th, I should say. I was looking at the London date for some reason, but yeah, back on May 27th. I was late seeing it, but I did just see it this past Sunday with my girlfriend. She works at our movie theater, so she was able to get the both of us in for free, which is nice. Although I actually wish I had contributed money to this movie because, first off, I was very eager to do this video, even though it's late, even though I waited a few days. I was very eager to do this review because I just want to see some positivity about this movie. I want to get more of that vibe out there for it, because this movie was just incredible. I honestly really enjoyed it. I even loved parts of it to an extent. I just thought it was a really good one, and it's personally my favorite X-Men movie so far. I've seen them all too. I definitely like parts of the original trilogy. Days of Future Past was pretty good. First Class is good too, for the most part. But I think Apocalypse is my favorite one. I just all around enjoyed it. I'll probably go into more specifics in a few minutes. But I just thought there's just a lot to really like about this movie. It definitely deserves more credit than it's getting right now, in my opinion. I'm wearing my Deadpool shirt because I already wore my Marvel shirt a couple days ago, and I didn't. I guess Deadpool sort of semi-applies to the X-Men, but anyway, I really do not get all the hate for this movie. I was glad to see Chris Stuckman give it a very high grade, and for Jeremy Jahns, it was a good time, no alcohol required. So it's good to see some good things being said about it, but I just don't know why this movie's getting all this criticism from fans and stuff like that. I just think there's too much good in this movie for it not to be well received, or more well received anyway. The cast does a really good job all around, minus a couple here and there. We'll talk more about Michael Fassbender's Magneto in particular in a few minutes, but Fassbender is great. He delivered an amazing performance in this one. I thought his Magneto's character is definitely the most compelling of the movie. I thought James McAvoy is, he's really good as Charles Xavier. And then we'll get into Apocalypse a little bit more later. But Oscar Isaac, he did a fine job for what he had to do for the most part. Sophie Turner I still really like as Jean Grey. I think she makes a really good younger version of the character, and she really stepped up in an awesome way at the end of the movie, I thought. And then he even had Evan Peters as Quicksilver, who continues to be the fan favorite of these movies. He had a scene that was very similar to what he did in Days of Future Past. A sequence where he is saving a bunch of people, or having them avoid certain things, just saying in certain ways as time slowly passing by. He had a scene like this in the X Mansion, which was pretty entertaining. Definitely the funniest part of the movie. And this movie's pretty serious too. There's little bits of humor here and there, but it was very self-serious, and I was fine with that. It's almost like a breath of fresh air for me for a Marvel movie, honestly. Because we're used to Marvel movies, being, packed with quite a lot of humor. Civil War was a bit more serious than they have been lately, but, still there's just a lot of one-liners on, a constant, more, comical vibe once in a while. So I was kind of glad to see X-Men Apocalypse, just taking the material seriously. Or, Civil War does take the material seriously, but, X-Men Apocalypse is going about it in a more serious way, I guess. All around, less jokes. Jokes are good once in a while, but I think Marvel can sometimes put too much into their movies. And then of course with we've had a lot of comic book films out lately, so people of course are going to be comparing this to Civil War, to Batman v Superman, even to Deadpool, and they'll probably be comparing it with the ones coming next year as well. And I'm sorry with the weird little things I'm doing right now. But anyway. And, I've seen them all. I reviewed both Batman v Superman and Captain America Civil War, which you can still watch on my channel. And, my opinion on Batman v Superman's kind of went down a little bit since I did that review. I still really liked it. I still thought Affleck was good. But, overall, I actually think I enjoyed X-Men Apocalypse more than Batman v Superman. And then when comparing it to Captain America Civil War, this is definitely going to be the more unpopular opinion, but I actually liked X-Men Apocalypse just a little bit more than Civil War, which is going to surprise some people, because, of course, in Civil War it involves characters I do care more about, but X-Men Apocalypse ended up making me care more, quite a bit about these versions of the characters, and it honestly ended up emoting more emotion for me, and honestly made me care more by the end of it. Which I thought was pretty impressive for it. And okay, so let's get into some of the details of the movie. I'm not going to be able to go into everything about it, but basically, we start off in ancient times. We're introduced to Apocalypse, and he basically believes that humanity has lost its way without his presence. So he's aiming to destroy the world and sort of remake it in his image, or what he sees as being the way it should be. And, and the writing for Apocalypse I thought was okay. He's not the most complex villain or anything. But I did think he worked more than other Marvel villains we've gotten on the live action lately. I thought he actually ended up working better than Ultron, for example. I thought he was a better villain than Zemo in Civil War. And, I did like the design for Apocalypse for the most part. I do think he should have been a little bit bigger, a little bit closer to the size of his comic book counterpart. But I think Oscar Isaac, like I said, he did a fine job for the role he had and what he had to do, and the line delivery was fine. We'll build a better one and stuff like that with the world and such. I thought Apocalypse himself was good for the most part. He's definitely not the best Marvel villain we've gotten on the live action screen, but I did think he worked better than certain other ones we've had, like I said. And so then a lot of the movies also recruiting. We have Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique going around. She's sort of seen as a hero to the mutants now. For the events that transpired in Days of Future Past. And Jennifer Lawrence in the movie. I really do like Mystique as a character. She is one of my comic book female crushes. As far as that goes. I don't necessarily have a problem with Jennifer Lawrence playing Mystique. Jennifer Lawrence, she's a solid actress. I'm not high on her like some people are, but I also don't hate her like some other people do. I think she can be pretty good. So I don't really have a problem with her playing Mystique, really. But I do think the writing for Mystique herself in the movies could be better. I just don't feel like, she's really what she should be, when compared to the comics. Not everything has to be like the comics, but I feel like she's a little bit too far off from how she is in them. So Jennifer Lawrence, Mystique, she was okay in this movie. She didn't have quite the prominent role she had in Days of Future Past, which wasn't a huge deal because we did have concentration on other characters like Magneto, like Jean Grey. We even got introduced to a new Cyclops in this movie, who is played by Ty Sheridan, who I thought did an okay job too. I didn't really have a problem with any of the cast. Like I said, the highlights were definitely James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Sophie Turner, and probably Evan Peters. But I never had a problem with anyone acting-wise in this movie, minus two. There isn't a whole lot of issues I have with this movie, but I do have to talk about them. The actress who played Storm Alexandra Shipp, I thought she was one of the weaker ones acting-wise. Honestly, I don't know. I just felt like something wasn't quite as quality about her portrayal as some of the others were. And Olivia Munn as Psylocke. Psylocke didn't get a lot of screen time, but I know a lot of people were excited to see the character on film. And she was okay. She was good for the action scenes, but she she didn't really show much acting wise. Then again, maybe she was just told not to do much anyway. Because she was basically a pretty stern, just a flat character. Just very serious, not really getting many lines, I guess. But I didn't think Olivia Munn was overly impressive as Psylocke. But other than that, I like pretty much everyone else in the cast. Even Angel is kind of cool. We didn't see much of this character, but we even had Jubilee in this movie, which is nice. We had Havoc, Lucas Till's Havoc, who I thought was actually pretty good. Of course, there's spoilers in the title, so I shouldn't have to mention this, but spoilers, Havoc actually ends up being killed, as far as we know, anyway. Which is kind of surprising for me to see. And I also like Nicholas Holt's Beast. I like the design for him when he goes into that mode, and I think Nicholas Holt does actually a pretty good job in the role. I sort of like the friendship between him and Charles. And the visuals, I should talk about that too. The visual effects are just great in this movie. It becomes a spectacle by the end of it. And the final battle between Apocalypse and our heroes. It's really just a very entertaining, very intense, and just a lot to enjoy at the climax of this movie. And we'll talk more about that in a second, because I have to talk more about Michael Fassbender's Magneto, who, like I said, was the highlight of the movie for me, character and acting-wise. I thought the writing for him was excellent in this one. Michael Fassbender, he really just knocks it out of the park with the layers he's able to portray with him. We see Magneto at a very different spot and point in his life in this movie. We see him, he actually has a family, and he's been trying to be under the radar since the end of Days of Future Past. And let's see, so I was trying to read up on something here. Okay, so he's in Poland. And so he lives with his wife and his daughter, who's named Nina, and he ends up using his powers to actually save a co-worker, but this ends up causing him to be discovered. They come to capture him, and they accidentally kill his family in a very tragic fashion too. When the arrow goes through his daughter and also gets into his wife, that was just a really tragic scene, and just the way it was shot was really good. Again, Michael Fassbender just showing this loss and this pain in his face. It was just really, really well done. And the way he ends up using his powers just to slaughter all the police officers with the blade was really quick and just really subtle, but yet very satisfying. And he understood his actions after this point. He even ends up going back to where he worked, where his coworkers actually, turned him in, basically informed on him. And, he's planning just to kill them all before Apocalypse shows up. And he understood Magneto's feelings, his perspective. He understood where he's at mentally. And that's what kind of caused him to become one of the four horsemen of Apocalypse in this movie, just because he's at such a stage of, pain and loss and grief, as Charles talks about later in the movie, towards the climax of it. And Apocalypse, probably knew and preyed on that, so he could more easily influence him. And I thought that whole thing was just really well written, really well acted out, and it really ends up playing into what made the climax of this movie so great. Of course, we also know that Quicksilver is Magneto's son, and he's sort of debating whether or not to tell him, and he's heard so much about him, and he's seen him briefly but never got the chance. I do think they should have had Quicksilver tell Magneto that he's his son, but it's probably being saved for later, I guess. I think that could have helped Magneto turn around a little bit sooner. But when Magneto actually ends up choosing to defend the rest of them against Apocalypse, and we see those metal beams or whatever they were come down and go into like an X shape to stop Apocalypse from getting closer to them. I just thought that was a really badass moment that Magneto starts fighting against Apocalypse, which is really cool. And I also really liked, again, the visuals were just great in this, and then the mental battle that went on between Charles and Apocalypse, the visuals and the way that was shot was really different, I thought. I liked the way they went about that. And before I forget to talk about it, we also had a cameo from Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. When Jean, Cyclops, and some of the others are captured, As well as Mystique. They're in this facility, which is, of course, run by William Stryker, and they basically end up releasing Wolverine, and we see sort of that Weapon X, Wolverine's initial escape. We see him slaughter a bunch of the guards, and that was a really, really badass moment. Even though it's PG-13, it still looked really brutal. I like the savagery Hugh Jackman had and showed with it. And we also had this moment between Jean and Wolverine, which I thought was really nice. We see their connection, and it seemed like Jean sort of gave Logan some of his memories back a little bit sooner, maybe. I don't know. But I just thought it was really nice, and it sort of foreshadowed, their future connection together, which I thought was, pretty well shown, pretty well done. We also had a Stan Lee cameo in this movie. I forget to mention those in the videos, because he's always there most of the time anyway. But we just see him looking overhead, at the stuff going on in the sky and stuff. But it's still cool to see him as always. Stan Lee's the man. And like I said, the climax, the final fight is just amazing in this. And when Jean unleashes her Phoenix powers, which was just made for a really cool spectacle. And the way Charles, sort of was, trying to reach out to her, trying to get her to build up that power and just release it. I thought it was a really touching moment, and I actually teared up, almost tears of happiness in that scene, seeing Jean do that, and, how Xavier got her to, unleash herself like that. I thought it was really cool. So there were a couple months where I actually did tear up in this movie, like I said, during the climax with Jean and such, and also when Magneto lost his family, that did affect me. So it really affected me more emotionally than I expected it to, for sure. And Apocalypse ends up being destroyed, and of course Magneto also aids Jean in getting that done. And then of course we see them sort of rebuilding the mansion because that had gotten destroyed. When Quicksilver saved a bunch of them. We see Eric or Magneto helping Jean to construct the school, which is nice, seeing them look at each other as they're going about it. And Magneto ends up refusing Charles' offer to stay and help teach. But it seems like they're on good terms at this point, and the timeline's altered, so he's not necessarily going to become that mortal enemy, but he can still sense it's a little bit destined just because of their different stances and ways of how they're going to have to deal with the humans as it goes along still. And we also had a pretty cool after credits scene. We see the Weapon X facility, Stryker's being research, and a blood symbol named Weapon X, and some people think X-23 or something like that. I don't know, we'll see, but it's the XX Corporation, which is going to tie into some of the later movies coming up. So that's all I have to say about the story of it. Like I said, the Magneto stuff is great. Apocalypse was fine for the villain he was, I guess. There's some things about him that could have been better, like the size and things like that, but I thought Oscar Isaac did okay with it. Definitely not the worst Marvel villain. Better than Ultron, better than Zemo from Civil War, and so the story I thought was pretty good. The Magneto stuff is really, really strong. Him and Charles' connection was really well explored again. Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, she did okay acting wise, but I just feel like the writing for Mystique herself could be a lot better. Sophie Turner did a really good job as Jean Grey, I thought, and so did the rest of them. In their roles. Only had a problem with Storm and Psylocke just being sort of lacking, I thought, but all around the cast did a really good job, and I'm surprised with how much I ended up caring about all of them. The battles were great, the fight scenes are pretty good. I just honestly love this movie. Like I said, it's my favorite X-Men movie so far, personally. It may have a run for its money with the sequels they do, or maybe the final Wolverine movie, but as of right now, this is definitely my favorite one. It's honestly one of my favorite Marvel movies in general, even when compared to the MCU films. Honestly enjoyed this more than Civil War by a bit, to be honest. So, let me know what you guys thought about it. I'd be interested to hear more positivity. I think it definitely deserves it. I think it's one of the best we've ever gotten, no question about it. It's definitely within my maybe even my top 3 favorite Marvel films ever. But really enjoyed the movie. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and theprincebullet.com. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I'll catch you guys next time. And